here in Microfinance is a session Microfinance as a financial inclusion tool for Roma communities. Is one of the session part of the first REDI summit event, which 3 days in a row started to create a special environment, bringing together people representing government officials from European Commission, people coming from different business environment, and people coming from Roma civil society, trying to debate and to think how to solve the problems which who Roma communities are faced, especially in within these days, these tough days, but even for the future, starting to set up strategic directions. I am Bogdan Merfea, and currently I'm Executive Director of Roma Entrepreneurship Development Initiative Economic Fund, and I'm going to try to moderate this panel. But because, of course, it's not about moderator, it's about you, panelists, it's about participants. I'll speak very short, and I'll try to challenge you to after presentation, after each presentation, to ask questions and to express opinions, and for sure at the end of the session to have two solutions or two ways how can we perform better in the future in this respect. As a panelist, we have Mr. Peter Surek, CEO at Erste Social Funding, Social Finance Holding. Erste being one of the biggest group present in East Europe, and as a bank, and has great achievements in social finance. Mr. Jorge Ramirez Puerto, he's a general manager at European Microfinance Network, with a very strong experience in the field. We have Mr. Maricel Duminica as a panelist, a fund manager at REDI Fund. As far as I can notice here, we have participants on behalf of FIRE Romania, Mr. Cătălin Sauta. We have Eranda Bayrami from Agro Social Fund, Albania. We have Miss Raluca Andreica as the CEO of Patria Credit, and of course we have, and I'm glad to, and we have the honor, and I'm glad to greet Miss Georgiana Efremova as from the Director of Economic and Social Affairs from European Commission. I don't know if I missed somebody. If I do apologize, but it's better to enter directly into the subject. And as I mentioned, it's not about moderating. It's about the topic, and what I would like to have a conclusion, or three direction after the session, answering a very important question. This coming from the main topic of the session: is financial inclusion for the Roma people through banking and microfinance a key to social progress? I would like to try to find some answers according to your experience. As we notice here, we have a lot of experienced people with great achievements in the field. What within this framework, I challenge you to find innovative, what we can have to find out innovative models which were already applied or are in progress from with having this topic, social progress in the Roma communities. And last but not least, having European Microfinance among network among us, how can we join the efforts through these difficult times in order to be able to proceed to financial inclusion and once again to book social progress for Roma communities. Hoping that we can find some answer to these questions, I would like to invite Mr. Peter Surek as the first panelist to present one of his experiment, very well known, not very well known, but very successful experiment, which I think that should be shared among us. Mr. Surek, please.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope you can hear me well. Greetings from Vienna. I can just be connected through a mobile phone, so I'll try to set it up in the way that you can see me and hear me. And I would kindly ask the colleagues in REDI to show the slides, which I can't produce myself on my handy. So at the beginning, thank you very much for inviting us to this interesting panel. And I would like to share a bit what we do in the area of social banking, and also what we do in respect with financing Roma community. I don't know if you can see already my slides because I don't see it on my handy. I think now it's coming. Great. So basically, firstly, let me just briefly explain or talk a bit about actually who is Erste Group for those ones of you who are not engaging with us. So we were founded 200 years ago, actually as a social bank. At that time in Vienna, it was actually an engagement of multiple people who founded the bank for the first time, that opened the doors of banking also for ordinary people. It was, in the current terms, actually as a kind of a social enterprise. Kindly ask you to move to the next slide, because there we have the information about Erste Group. And basically people were working at that time voluntarily for Erste, because it was a social institution to help people to save money and to make a small borrowing. Is it possible to move to the next slide, please? Great. So there you have an information and also a map of our presence in Eastern European countries. The bank has developed in the last 20 years to become one of the largest financial provider in Eastern Europe, with around 16 million clients and around 270 billion euros of assets. What is an interesting fact is that actually the largest single shareholder is a foundation, Erste Foundation, which also protects the mission of Erste to be there to disseminate prosperity in the region. So this is our core, and this is our DNA. Please move to the next slide. There we have the information about what we do in social banking, which is a special field within Erste Group, where we are focused mainly on social impact and achieving this in financially sustainable goal. So for us, reaching Black Zero is the target in social banking, but the main target is the impact. And as you can see on the slide, we have four main pillars of our activity. The two are connected with microfinance, so we support starting entrepreneurs and also microfinance businesses with financial product, mainly working capital investment loans, but also with non-financial support, being business training, e-learning, mentoring, supporting our clients to sustain their business with the main impact goal to create and preserve jobs. You probably know in Romanian environment, our microfinance company, which was called Good Be Credit, now it's called BCR Social Finance, taking the brand of our main bank in Romania. Then the next segment where we focus our activity is the segment of social organizations, meaning non-profits, NGOs, but also social businesses, where we have also, as the first bank in the region, offered financing, meaning mainly bridge loans, working capital, investment loans, and again combined with capacity building, mentoring to support social organization in expanding their activity, providing more of social support in our region. And the last but not least segment actually is to support people in financial difficulties, people who are excluded, marginalized, where we have some special products, tailored products, which I'll be talking about a bit later, and also provide debt advisory, financial education with the aim to provide and help them to reach financial stability. Next slide, please. On the next slide, you see the results. So up to now, we were able to disburse in social banking only around 400 million euros for the financing. We have financed around 7,000 starting entrepreneurs, meaning from the day zero, around 8,000 finance in our microfinance activities, and approximately 700 social organizations. You can then download our impact report. In the footnote, you have the link. But the main outcome actually is that around 70% of the clients confirm a better economic situation than before. And we were able to support creation and preservation of approximately 45,000 of jobs. So that's just an introduction about Erste Group and my activity in social banking. Next slide, please. With regards to the Roma community, what we have engaged in is firstly in BCR Social Finance in Romania. This was actually a project together with REDI, where we had loan officers, client actually people who were trained from Roma community and which were supposed to also provide microloans in the Roma communities, especially in the agriculture field. So this was the project which was, I think, going on for approximately 2 years with good results. And we would like to, I think, continue in this activity also once the situation regarding the COVID crisis will get to some kind of a new normal. But I would like to talk more about our project in Slovakia, which is a very challenging project and kind of very sophisticated, which tackles multiple areas with the main goal to support people to move into a decent housing. Because as we know, the housing situation, which is very much desperate in Roma community, is one of the root causes also for the education problems, for the health problems, for the job seeking problems which people have. And we also see now, after following the project for multiple years, then once people move into decent housing, that their whole life changes, that their kids can learn, they have a place to learn, they get a good sleep, they are in warm environment, and they can take jobs. So just to explain a bit more how the project functions, it's mentioned on the slide. So our work actually starts with the mayors of the cities or villages where we have the Roma communities, which are excluded and marginalized and separated mainly from the local village, where we worked on convincing the mayor to enable construction of low-cost houses for Roma community who currently live in a very desperate, mostly wooden, aluminium cottages, as you might know, from different locations like this in Eastern Europe. And we also help the municipality to apply for EU grants or to apply for local country grants to be able to prepare infrastructure to bring water, electricity, sewage to the area. Then the work in the community starts, which means to convince people who many times don't have trust towards the public sector, of course not towards the financial sector, So it's about working in a community to convince them to take part in the project, and it starts with financial education and saving. So the families are supposed to save around 50 euros monthly to be able then to purchase the plot from the saving amount, and also to prepare them for the repayment of the loan. As you see on the screen afterwards, we try to help people to find a job, because we can't provide a loan to the person that doesn't have an income. So we help them to provide to find the jobs, and then there is the phase of buying the plot, which is very emotional for many families, because it's for the first time that they are owning a land. As you know, historically, also in Austrian monarchy, many times a Roma community was not able to purchase and to own plot. So this is for them also a very important moment, that they are owning the land on which they are then later on building the construction. Then it follows with providing of microloan and supporting people in constructing low-cost house, which is constructed also with the support of our partners, which is Združenie pre lepší život and Človek tísni, the People in Need organization, the two NGOs which are the partners of the project. And as you can see on the map, it's basically mainly focused on the east part of Slovakia, where the Roma community and their situation is one of the worst in Slovakia. If you can move to the next slide. This is the pilot results, which basically started already approximately 5 years ago, and which was basically concluded last year. 100 savers have started with a saving. The expectations of the project was that maybe 20 will manage to save these 50 euros monthly, because it's quite substantial amount for many families who have multiple kids and really have not enough income to save. But we were surprised that 60 of them were able to save money, and approximately 40 of them were eligible for loan. The remaining 20 still had some old debts which they need to take care of. And we have approved around 23 microloans in the pilot, and around 20 houses have been built. So that's a kind of a time horizon of approximately 2 to 3 years until we get there. If we can move to the next slide, you'll see some pictures how the financial education looks like. So this is the basis to really prepare the families to plan their expenses, to plan their household budget, because as we know, many times the long-term kind of planning of finances is missing, and many families just live from month to month. Sometimes they even don't have money at the end of the month, and they need to borrow it from the local usurers for very high interest rates, which is also increasing the poverty circle in these communities. So this is the first step for us, to really prepare the families to be able to save and to understand somehow the time horizon and the time power in preparing themselves for building a house. Next slide, please, is about the saving. So the families many times for the first time have a saving book, as you can see in the hand of the man there. So they receive a kind of a physical document also of their saving, which is very important for them, because then they can see how much money they have every time they look into the book, into the passbook. And just a digital saving account is not giving this kind of additional security or safety that my money is safe. I didn't lost it. I just have it on this special book. And what is important to mention, that this 50 euros monthly, plus additionally the housing subsidy, which the families are entitled to once they have a legal settlement, which is in Slovakia approximately 80 euro. This together is the monthly installment for the loan. So basically this saving and then the subsidy which they receive later on is the total loan installment which they pay for the microloan. And so it's an important preparation for the families, an important test if they really are able to repay the loan, and it's preparing them for this repayment time. Next slide, please. After they finish saving, they purchase a plot. You can see that the purchase price is very low, because these are areas with cheap plots with low demand. So the prices are affordable for Roma people to be able to buy a small plot and to start then later on a construction site. So this is one of the map of the plots in one of the village which took part in the program. Next, please. So afterwards, basically the families, we try to help them to figure out what is their financial situation, if they have some other loans in the meantime, which we in this 12 months horizon try to help them to repay, so that they are eligible for financing. And so the bank employees are then approving the loan. It's approximately 9,000 to 10,000 euros, depending on the size of the house. And the loan is basically supposed to cover the cost of the material. So basically, every time there is a bill or an invoice, the family comes to the bank and they get this money reimbursed. So it's not paid upfront, but it's paid ex post. And we also support families to be able to buy a cheaper construction material. So we try to help them to get a better price for their construction. The loan takes usually around 12 to 13 years to repay, and it's provided in the level that the bank can achieve a zero profitability level. Additionally, what is important to mention is that our foundation and also some other donors have helped to create a guarantee fund, which is helping to pay the loan installments if the family gets into a difficult situation and for a couple of months they can't cover the cost of the repayment. So it's basically ensuring that the repayment is provided at any time, and this is also, of course, a very important incentive factor for a bank to be able to provide this financing to this community, which is, of course, perceived in financial sector as a high risk client based on the risk assessment. So this guarantee fund is a very important topic, and that's something where also we are discussing with the policymakers on the European and local level, how the public sector finances can also provide these guarantees for such loans for people to build their houses, because of course the philanthropic capital which our foundation and other foundations can invest is limited. So we won't be able to scale the project with our money into thousands of houses because the costs are, in this case, quite high. Next slide, please. So basically, then the construction takes place, which usually takes 18 to 24 months. And the important part actually is that the family is building the house themselves. So it's nothing given to them. It's nothing provided for free. In this construction phase, they also basically learn important skills with the supervision of the NGO, which is providing this construction assistance. And at the same time, they create a kind of a strong emotional relation to the house, which is a very important element. And of course, it provides and enables that the house is so cheap, because the total costs are around 12 to 14,000 euros maximum. Next slide, please. So this is next slide, please. This is how the buildings look like. In the meantime, as mentioned in the pilot, this was these 19 houses which were already approved by the local authorities, and people are living in them. In the meantime, we have approximately 35 houses which were being built, and we have approximately 25 municipalities taking part in the project, and would like to scale it into other cities in Slovakia. It all depends on support which we can get for that, because the cost for the whole project for one house which we have and the NGO has is basically almost the same as the loan amount, as the cost of the house, to really accompany the family for almost 2.5 years, up to 3 years, starting from financial literacy, saving, and up to the construction assistance is quite high. So we need to kind of find resources to be able to get this price down, which is already visible that we can increase the efficiency, but still we are basically discussing with the local authorities to get more support to be able to provide construction of more houses. On the bank side, there is the issue of the guarantee, which is also the second topic on which we are having discussions. Next slide, please. I don't know if we can show the video, if the link would be working, because we have there one video store of one family which maybe shows the best the situation. So if it's possible, then kindly ask you to start the video if it works. And please also with sound. Can we also have sound, please? Okay, it looks like the sound is not working. So you can just see the pictures without the sound, and the family which really engaged into the project, and they now finished the house. So this was the stage in the middle of the construction site, and this is what I mentioned, that we see that for many of these families, their lives have completely changed, and also the acceptance of this project in the society is a very positive one. Especially because the families are involved very much in the project, and basically the financing of the house is also mortgage, as the other population in the country is also using as the most appropriate tool for financing their home. So there is no grant, nothing is given for free, and that's the important also element in the acceptance of this project by the local society, because they say basically Roma community needs to do the same as we need to do if we want to build a house. We need to take mortgage, we need to save, and then we need to build it, because many families still build it also with the support of their family. So that's all from my side. Thank you for listening. I hope you could hear me well, and you could see at least the visuals.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Surek. On my side, it's a bright example, a bright practical example, and I think this is the way we should act to solve practical problems in the field for Roma people. It's I would like to draw two conclusions and then to invite you if there are some questions. First of all, maybe. It's important to understand that Erste social division of Erste Bank succeeded to involve local communities, NGO, volunteers, your financial institution, and the second important conclusion is something which we need to focus in the future: saving. Microfinance is not only about crediting. Microfinance it's first about saving, and I know, Mr. Surek, that Erste has a very great tradition in this respect, and this we need to combine, because mostly we are focusing on microcredit, but microfinance implies micro saving, and this is one of the most important side of financial education. So are there any questions for Mr. Surek? Or I will address Mr. Surek what maybe the following question: what was the most difficult, let's say, step to achieve this this program? What it has been very difficult to work in getting this result?
I think an easier question to answer will be the opposite. What was easy? There was almost nothing easy. So the whole project was very difficult, starting, with convincing mayors to prepare the areas, because of course many of their voters were against it. So they were also many times resistant to dedicate the plot and enable construction of these houses. Then it was, of course, about the bank, inside the bank. When we started with social banking, then it was very, very difficult to convince the bank that it is possible to lend to this community, to really people in excluded Roma communities who are not, many of them, having a regular work income, and so the trust in this project was of course in the bank. To gain this trust was a very big effort. And then it was also about convincing Roma people to take part in it, because they were many times betrayed. They were many times, discouraged by different promises which were not fulfilled by different organizations. So it was difficult to also convince them to take part in the program, because they just didn't believe that a bank can provide them financing, that they are able to build a house, that they are able to repay it back. So basically, in all the stages, there were lots of effort, lots of issues, and of course also the coordination of all the activities between municipality, the NGOs, the bank, and foundations which were also supporting this project was also a quite substantial effort. But we are all happy. It paid off. The project won the Social Mari Prize in Austria, which is like the most prominent social innovation prize here. And just recently, it also won the prize Roma Spirit in Slovakia as the best kind of social innovation in Roma community. So we are happy, and we are still motivated to go on, and are looking forward for support from some other organizations.
I am happy, Mr. Surek, that you at the end you mentioned that you are happy to go on. So maybe having in mind your presence in Balkans have a strong group. I hope that many you have the chance to multiply the project, and I think even others microfinance institutions can follow this example, or maybe can join with other banks in Balkans, and I will benefit from the presence of Mrs. Jorge Efremova. Maybe to find, we have to promote, but maybe to have support on her side to multiply such a project, because it's I think it's a high need to solve this kind of problem in Balkans for Roma communities. If there are any remarks,
I have a question for Mr. Surek. Thanks a lot for the great presentation. It was really interesting to hear from you. I'm wondering what was the behavior of the Roma that was part of the program? Did you saw a high rate of NPLs, or would you say that the risk of providing a loan to the Roma was pretty much similar to that of the mainstream population?
I did not hear the question right, because there was some noise in between. If you could repeat, please.
Yes, of course. So I was wondering what was the behavior of the Roma that was part of the program. Did you saw a high rate of non-performing loans, or was it similar to that of the mainstream population?
I mean, as mentioned, like the first houses were just built in the last year. So the repayment of the loan starts after the house is finished. So it's, I think, too early to say what will be the the repayment result, because we are talking about the next 13 years when the families will be repaying the loan. So now, after actually not even 1 year of repayment, it's difficult to say. It also combined with moratoriums, which we have in all our markets. So many of these clients also applied for moratorium. So it's, I think, too early to say what will be the risk of the project. Of course, the expectation of the bank is that it will be higher than the regular population. The question is how much. If it will be 2 times or it will be 5 times, it needs to be just really seen in the next years when the project will be kind of continuing. But so far there are no issues, because it's just too early to say, as mentioned.
Thank you very much. I think first of all, I one technical question, please. Switch on mute, because somebody is typing on laptop, and it's a bit noisy, which it's not good for our conference. So thank you very much. And having on this bright example, practical example, solving and very hot problems. Let's see and how can join our efforts as microfinance has an important representative institution, European Microfinance Network. How can we solve some issues? Joining our efforts in such kind of association, and how can we channel all our ideas to achieve practical, and many times I am underline practical practical problems in the field, because that is why we need it. And this is respect, I will invite Mr. Jorge Ramirez, General Manager of European Microfinance Network, to introduce in his presentation about the role of European Microfinance Network in this field.
Thank you, Bogdan. You know well EMN. You have been a board member of EMN for a few years, so you know us very well. But I guess it's not the case for everybody here listening. So I would just like to do a very short presentation about what do we mean when we say microfinance. Okay, so I'm just gonna check into. I will share my presentation. I guess everybody can see it. Is this okay?
Yeah, it's okay on my side.
Okay, perfect. Then if everybody's just going through it, I'll just give a general presentation about what the microfinance sector is in Europe. Also a little bit what's the situation, particularly this year, regarding the COVID crisis, which is affecting everybody, and of course also to the sector. And then some initiatives and actions we have been doing with REDI and through some of our members, and some research papers about microfinance and Roma communities in Europe. So I'll just introduce you briefly, EMN. We are a network of around 100 members in 26 European countries. We bring together not only microfinance institutions, but also all kinds of stakeholders that are supporting and working together with microfinance institutions in order to further promote social and financial inclusion in Europe. So I will just go straight away to the main results of the snapshot of the sector, the most recent snapshot picture of the sector. We do every 2 years an overview survey. So we contact all the members. And this year we had 143 institutions participating from 29 countries, and we gathered the data from 2018 and 19. Okay. Obviously, the sector is built up primarily of non-banking financial institutions. Okay, so we're talking about the majority of the sector. They are not banks, they are not licensed banks, even though we still have some banks really actively involved and with very big results, like for instance, we just saw the case of Erste, among other. But the majority of the sector are particularly small organizations. We call them like non-banking financial institutions, but you can find there like NGOs, foundations, just non-banking in general, other kind of institutions, social limited companies, etc. But all of them, one of the main characteristics is that they have a very strong social mission. Okay, I will go to that later on. Very important that the majority of the MFIs in Europe, they don't only work on the provision of microcredit as a financial instrument uniquely. They bring it together with accompanying measures and different non-financial services, which we consider are fundamental. When we're talking about, for instance, a personal microcredit, these non-financial services could be financial education. When we're talking about a professional microcredit or business microcredit, we have to highlight about mentoring, consulting, and training on entrepreneurship that microfinance institutions provide to their clients. The sector keeps growing. We see this year after year. We started doing this overview survey in 2005, and every year constantly we see growth rates in approx 10% on the main figures. For instance, on active borrowers in 2019, we have 1.5 million people in Europe. It's a 12% increase compared to 2018. The outstanding portfolio is now in 3.7 billion, 14% increase from the previous year. We see the split between business loans and personal loans. The majority are still business loans, but we see a higher growth on personal loans. And in personal loans, we talk about a big bunch of activities. We talk for sure, like the case we have just seen on housing microcredit, or it could be about education, about transportation. It could be in general about investment in the person in order to be more employable or have a better life or better or more socially included. As I said before, very important. The big majority of the microfinance institutions have a strong social mission, and with financial inclusion have the first goal for them. Most of them are working towards the more vulnerable populations, which I will say, of course, are ethnic minorities, migrants, unemployed in general, women, and some of them even have special products specifically tailor-made for these segments of population. I will also say that there are still we find some issues for the sector in order to keep growing, as everybody else. Our main concern is about adequate funding for the sector. You know that microfinance institutions in the majority of the countries, they cannot take on deposits, so they cannot straight away promote savings from their clients. They are purely providing non-financial services and microcredit. But what many of them do is that in collaboration with other institutions, in particular banks or cooperative banks or credit unions, they can enhance or push for the clients to save, because as just Bogdan mentioned, it's one of the key elements for financial inclusion, probably the first one. We see some recent trends. We see more and more MFIs engaged in financing green technologies and green projects, particularly on energy efficiency for housing. And we see more and more MFIs getting into the digital stream, being more and more digitalized, not only internally in order to increase their efficiency, the managerial efficiency, but also in their relationship to the client. And this might cause a problem, as I will mention later on. But still, the sector needs a lot of funding. I mean, from the gap identified by the European Commission in a recent study, there's a financing gap of almost 13 billion euros per annum that the microfinance sector could cover. We are only covering, as I said before, 3.7. So still the gap is very big. And unfortunately, due to the crisis this year, expectations are that this gap could even further increase. So, and what happened with the sector? We did a very quick survey between April and May 2020. That was the first lockdown period, the first wave, in order to identify what was the status of the sector, how were they coping with the situation, and particularly about their perception regarding how the clients of the microfinance sector were coping. Well, first about MFIs, many of them, of course, you can imagine they had a lot of difficulties in order to collect the loans, as usual. Very difficult to meet the clients on the field due to the lockdowns. They had to reschedule and redesign the delivery of the non-financial services and try to do them online because it was not possible to do presential trainings on site. Communication with the clients also was strongly impacted, and in general, all the disbursing loan activities was strongly interrupted. Many MFIs also were strongly concerned about the foreseen increase in the portfolio risk. This has been somehow, in certain aspects, been delayed or postponed because, as you know, in many countries there were moratorium imposed. So somehow this problem has been postponed till the end of this year. Now with the second wave, it has been further postponed in some countries till probably early spring next year. But the problem is still there. I mean, obviously, the potential increase in default rates among the sector is pretty big, and it's a problem that definitely we need to tackle sooner or later. There's a lack of liquidity among the sector, of course. Operational costs were still there, but operations or providing loans and collecting loans was not possible. Many MFIs opted for restructuring their financials and particularly rescheduling the portfolio. So in general, we have seen a decrease in the outstanding portfolio. The majority of the MFIs are focusing on the current clients rather than going to find new clients because the risk perception is much higher. So they try to be more conservative and try to help the current clients with extra services, sometimes even new loans with much better conditions that are partially guaranteed by public institutions or other financiers. And we also see that the low general rates of the interest rates that we see at a central bank level have not been transferred in lower costs for the funding to the MFIs. So we see many MFIs trying to diversify their funding mix now in this situation, but they don't see better conditions at this moment. But particularly, what did the MFIs have been trying to do all these months? As I said before, restructuring the client loans due to the deferrals and moratoriums. Many MFIs have been able to raise new funds and provide new loans with better conditions for clients. We have seen this in many occasions. We have a specific web page on the EMN website about plenty of activities that MFIs are trying to do in order to improve the conditions of the clients, with not only deferrals, but also maybe new loans, just with zero even interest rate, and new training, continuous communication, as is the third point. Many MFIs focus the majority of the staff just in contacting the clients. In some cases, we're talking about thousands of clients, just to understand better what was their situation and try to fit their services better to their needs. Also, we see escalation in the way MFIs are using digital services with its clients, because it was impossible in a lockdown situation to reach them. New digital solutions are also being implemented in order to manage products and services internally. And yeah, as I said, rocketing communication between the staff of the MFIs and the clients, particularly to understand better the situation. One of the main things done. But then let's go to a couple of activities that we have been doing in EMN during the last few years regarding microfinance and Roma communities. We will start by a webinar we organized with REDI, actually in April, just right before the outburst of the first lockdown. I think it was even during the first days of the lockdown, at least in Brussels. But it was a very interesting webinar. We had REDI there and REDI. REDI is a microfinance institution from France, which they don't have particular or specifically tailor-made products for Roma population, but they come up to work with a big part of this community in some areas of France. Some of the conclusions were very interesting. They, from the point of view of REDI, they identified that actually Roma clients were much more reliable than even usual clients in general terms. They also saw, REDI was one of the MFIs that they did tens of thousands of calls to their clients, and they quickly identified that vulnerability factors associated with the Roma communities, like lower education, low digital awareness, etc., will only worsen as a consequence of the COVID crisis. This is a crisis that, of course, as any other crisis, it will always impact to the most vulnerable. Financial institutions and social financial institutions are becoming more risk averse due to uncertainty, and that also has a bigger impact in the more vulnerable communities. In general, we see, as I mentioned before, that many financial lenders are going through a spread of digitalization, and particularly in the relationship with the clients. But this, even if it's an advantage for a percentage of the clients, it might be worse for a percentage of these vulnerable clients, particularly with those who have low connectivity and be online, which might be the case on Roma populations. So that we need to be very careful, because for the sake of the crisis and being in contact with the clients, we might be putting aside a subsegment of our clients. So it is very important that in the sector we keep a balance between digitalization necessary for operational efficiency, for increasing the outreach towards a wider number of clients, but the human component that has always characterized microfinance sector should be preserved. We did, for instance, another interesting activity. This is a research paper that we promoted called Microfinance and Roma Empowerment in the European Union. This research paper is available in our website. Here in our slide, I hope REDI will be able to share with all of you the slide. You have a hyperlink or where to find the study. It's a small study, but very significant. We extracted a lot of conclusions. This study was the finalist of the Yemen Research Award in 2015. And it was pretty, objective, I will say. Basically, he said that microfinance is not sufficient, okay, for Roma empowerment. Access to credit cannot solve the structural problems that affect Roma. And self-employment activities per se, without well-designed policies and long-term strategies, are not efficient. So it is not only about access to credit, and this has been already said here, it's very important. And employment, particularly just focusing on employment, is not the only way to empower the community. So it is necessary that in order to fight the vulnerability and exclusion faced by Roma population, in particular, the study was focusing on Roma women. It is necessary an access to a wide range of financial and non-financial services. And non-financial services are fundamental. We're talking about financial education, I mentioned that before, but also about training, coaching, etc. And within the financial services, we should be able to offer a wider plethora of instruments, not only credit. We also mentioned that here before. We're talking about micro savings, micro insurance, housing, like in the case of Erste, financial literacy, etc., etc. All these compelling services will be the one that could have a chance to really empower Roma population, not only simply a credit. Okay. In fact, we have several members in Yemen that are actively involved into these activities, some of them with specific products designed for Roma population, some other in which within the portfolio they have Roma population. But here we have a list of 5 of them that we know because we have been working with them, and we know that they have a Roma population within their portfolio. And I'm sure that there are more of our members, from our 100 members, that are also involved into activities with this community. And this is it. Just I'm open for any question or even go through the debate later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jorge. It's a very nice presentation, and it's good for everybody to know what kind of work you are doing, and together, and even Mr. Surek to mention that it's part of the board member, since I am proud to be a member of research committee. So as I mentioned, joint efforts, and maybe we have some proposal for this from your presentation, and even related to Mr. Surek presentation. Why to do not try to multiplicate the project in Slovakia as a microfinance network? Why to do not try to dream to create a guarantee fund? Why to do not create, as there is a European Banking Association, why to do not dream to create a European Microfinance Institutions Association in Europe? These are questions, but for sure, as you mentioned in your presentation, even COVID crisis, we need to go through. And thank you very much. It was a very nice presentation. Are there any questions, please? If not, as I mentioned, but I think I missed one thing in the introduction. I mentioned among participants Ms. Jorge Efremova on behalf of the Directorate of Economic and Social Affairs from European Commission. And sorry, Ms. Efremova, I can tell you that one guy who suffers from a long time memory loss went to an employment agency to find what work he's suited for. And today he became a moderator. So I'm sorry that I missed to introduce you among the panelists. So that is why, once again, I am a moderator here. So please, we will be very glad and honored to have your opinion related to our topics and about our presentations.
Hi, good afternoon from Brussels, and it's a real pleasure to be with you today. Don't worry about the name of my Director General. It's actually my dream to work for a Director General for Economic and Social Affairs. It actually exists in Finland, where they develop many innovative impact products to support social inclusion. The ministry is called Economic and Social Affairs, so it is possible. It's good to dream. But I will speak today on behalf of the Director General for Economic and Financial Affairs of the European Commission. So it's again a pleasure to be with you. I don't have a presentation or anything very structured, which is probably good for the sake of time, but I do have very good news. Both in relation to the very exciting innovative project on microfinance for access to housing, which we heard from Peter, and some good news to some of the challenges facing the microfinance industry, which Jorge was just explaining us. But everything in order. To start with, I wanted to go back to your central question that you put on the table at the start of this discussion, and to just briefly say that from the European perspective, indeed, Roma inclusion is a key priority for creating a union of equality. This is indeed well spelled out in the very new EU Roma framework, leading us to achievements up to 2030. And also microfinance and social innovation as such are very important tools in the new green, clean and fair recovery that we're going to have. And it will be spelled out in the future European action plan for social economy and social innovation that will come next year. But just to get more concrete now and to speak about, firstly, the EU policy for microfinance. Many of you know it's quite old, more than a decade old already. And then the first EU level facilities guaranteeing investments into microfinance, that is providing guarantees to financial intermediaries, providing access to microcredit on the ground for these privileged communities. They are already 7 or 8 years old, with the progress facilities that were launched once upon a time as European Parliament pilots, in fact. And during the preceding period, the European Commission developed for the first time a set of very complementary social finance facilities that seek to develop the social finance market as a whole. We do policy for microfinance and for social enterprise finance, or these were the two big streams of work. There are 7 facilities now on the market already implemented by the European Investment Fund in particular. The good news is, for the last, what do we have? We have now 5 years. We have over 175 signed agreements with over 100 financial intermediaries across Europe, actually in more than 30 countries, since those facilities, or some of these facilities are also available for Western Balkans and neighborhood regions. I could tell you the most famous one, the Easy Guarantee Facility, which is also well known by the Erste Bank and to many of the members of the European Microfinance Network. It is benefiting 52 banking institutions and 35 non-banking financial intermediaries. That's just for a bit of context. But what we do have is not only financial instruments to support the different risk or liquidity needs of financial intermediaries, but we also have various advisory tools. And we have other central level grant programs with which we seek to support the more general supply and demand side of the social finance market. So many of you knows these innovative tools, and the good news is that in the next period, starting 2021, which is just around the corner, all these facilities will be continued and expanded, enhanced in scope under the new InvestEU program, which is the single investment program at the European level, which has a special dedicated social investments and skills window. So indeed, we will also go into other areas, such as social infrastructure and social innovation and social services provision. So indeed, many, many opportunities. I would like to highlight two very important trends that are particularly relevant for our discussion today when it comes to Roma and vulnerable groups and microfinance. The first thing is that microfinance for the last decade or so has been developed by the EU as a policy, as a tool for policy tool for job creation, for startup entrepreneurship, quite exclusively. And although this term will be reserved for this specific area of startup entrepreneurship as a way to reduce poverty, I'm very, very happy to tell you that we are venturing into new territories. So how to provide support for broader needs, for risk mitigation and for asset building of vulnerable groups. So we are going to have some new pilots that are also going in the area of access to housing and social innovation for employment, with focus on Roma. And this is the new European pilot project called HERO, as in helping people be the heroes of their lives. This is very, very much inspired by the excited model we heard from Peter in Slovakia. So I remember, just a short personal anecdote, but I remember talking to Peter back in, I think, 2017, and being really, really excited and saying, that's what EU support tools should be about. We should help scale just this type of innovative initiatives, help these models travel across Europe and serve the needs of more vulnerable communities, or Roma across Europe. How to do it. And at that time, I realized the very difficult truth that despite all the success in developing those nice facilities I told you about, we did not have the mandates, we did not have the structures in place to actually support such a project. So it has taken us a few years, but with the help of the European Parliament, we are developing this EU-level pilot that will work just along the lines that Peter has summarized. So I think that it captured all of your imaginations. It will also add some components in relation to employment support for the beneficiaries, because one of our learnings from the practice today, including in Slovakia, is that although the housing support is critical and can create a positive feedback loop to actually helping people to sleep better and become more employable and more ready and able to work and have more sustainable lives, it does take an active income, sustainable income from which to save. So one of the things that we're going to try to do is provide some social innovation tools to help people secure better jobs in order to proceed through the savings scheme and then be able to better repay the microloans they would ultimately benefit from within the program. So the program is developed in close cooperation with the European Parliament that gave us the budget, and our implementing partner, which is the Council of Europe Development Bank. Preparations are in the final stage. I want to say this has been just as hard to take through the EU administration as I imagine has been for the Slovak pioneers to pull it off on the ground. But we will kick off in early 2021, and we're actually going to help the Slovak experience scale in Slovakia and also enter Bulgaria and Romania, about which I'm very, very happy. And we were able to take it on as an EU project, also led by DG ECFIN, with the rationale that this pilot would provide a blueprint model that will be scalable in other EU and national programs. When I say national programs, I'm happy to say that our baseline conversations with the different line ministries in the different member states have been very encouraging. Governments are open, quite receptive to the idea, which again is a proof that social innovation and the language of social finance really helps to communicate on issues that are otherwise, well, maybe bitter or painful for many of the people who have worked on this for a long time, either from the policy or the civil society side. So this is very good. And when I say scalable in EU programs, I have in mind particularly the InvestEU program that I mentioned, because the Council of Europe Bank has committed to work with us and look at how we could create an integrated financial and advisory product that will be available for across the EU from 2021, well, under the InvestEU program, so that not every member state has to reinvent that wheel on its own, but there will be sort of an off-the-shelf EU financial instrument. So these are very good news. I get back to my storyline. I said 2 trends I'm going to highlight in the microfinance. So the first one was that microfinance is not just about job creation tool anymore, but we go in the direction of housing. So that's really good. The second, which I think was also echoed by the presentations before me, but now I'm telling you it's entered the EU policy domain, is the point that finance alone is not enough. And it's indeed often not even the first thing people need. So that we have to really find a way to offer and deliver integrated type of finance to social project that is with repayable and non-repayable components together. This is what we are also doing under the HERO program. It's another kind of rationale that we that helped us to gain the approval to pioneer it from the EU side, because EU finance really doesn't work like that. We have a finance planet and a grants planet, and they're quite disconnected. And although we have very good results, you can say in both planets, the true space of innovation, which is needed for social inclusion and socioeconomic advancement, I believe lies in the middle zone. So that's why it's very, very important to do financial, but also non-financial assistance to both financial intermediaries and beneficiaries. And so in terms of policy tools supporting this, during the last period, we did some testing under the EASY program. EASY stands for Employment and Social Innovation Program, such as we had small grants provided to the financial intermediaries working with migrants and refugees as a target group chosen for this pilot. And more recently, this awareness of the non-financial support that is needed for a lot of the vulnerable groups falling in the domain of inclusive entrepreneurship, and this is another domain EU has that is targeting all the groups that are furthest away from the labor market and the financial market. Those are the missing entrepreneurs, which we try to target through inclusive entrepreneurship programs. And under inclusive entrepreneurship, we just launched a call that will close soon, and we are orienting ourselves towards networks of incubators, so mainstream incubators, which we can support to reorient and develop services so that they cater to the needs of these more vulnerable groups, such as youth and women and Roma, which is also one of the groups spelled out. So these are the two trends I wanted to highlight, and again to say that this will all come together under the new social economy plan for social innovation. I guess I could end it here just because I started speaking about the dream. I will tell you another dream I have, and that is that perhaps we could work towards a EU-wide fund for patient capital that will support new solutions in poverty reductions and social entrepreneurs and, well, inclusive entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs, really trying to see what are the new solutions, new models, new case studies that could be taken up by policies and programs across, because I think it's what we are in need of the most. That is moral imagination of how to create a better world, because listening to a lot of the sessions of the REDI Summit before, I heard reconfirmed what I have known for a long time, that the problem is not in resources, but in having the resourcefulness. So that is knowing where and how to deploy our resources. So that is my dream, having a patient capital fund for social inclusion. And the last piece of good news is that we're using our time here in the Commission to work in that direction. There are some starting reflections, so stay tuned for more. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Efremova. Thank you for your inspired speech. I think it's right in the frame which with the other previous presentations and with our views. And I have to highlight that since I joined Microfinance from a big bank 10 years ago, as you mentioned, in the last 10 years, there are a lot of progresses booked in microfinance, in financial inclusions, in the view of European Commission to reduce poorness, and because at the end of the day, taking in account the vulnerable people, I'm speaking especially in Balkans. It's about democracy. It's about financial inclusion. And I noticed a lot of projects and a lot of developments. Of course, one of the most let's say well-known, it's EASY program with guarantee scheme, risk sharing, and financial and technical assistance. It was a very welcomed program. And hearing from your side the new developments, I think that all of us we are happy. And but the main what I'll draw a conclusion, and you mentioned the innovation and the good example are coming from the field. As we started from Erste Group social finance pilot, then we can find solution with European Commission to close the loop. And I think even we can close the loop with REDI fund. But before this, I wanted to ask participants or other people: are there any questions or remarks to address to Ms. Efremova, please?
I do have one actually, if I may.
Please, Jorge.
Jorge Ramirez,
Yes, we know.
from Yemen. I think it's something you just mentioned, Georgia. It's very interesting, the pilot you mentioned, and because it is indeed breaking a little bit the boundaries of what we understood about the microfinance being supported by the Commission and the European institutions traditionally. As you said, indeed, only that kind of microfinance directed to finance an income generating activity and self-employment was the traditional way for job creation to support the sector. But as we see in the way the sector is evolving, personal microcredit, the big basket of personal microcredit, is becoming more and more important because not all the social solutions can be sorted out just with job creation initiatives, only through employment generation. And we see this as a very interesting project, this very interesting pilot, and we would like to work on more in the future. Actually, in Yemen, we are starting to try to tackle how to bring the support of the European Commission into not only job creation or self-employed finance, which is working pretty well, but also to those activities like housing or like education or like transportation, etc., that indeed represent an opportunity for the final beneficiaries to invest in themselves. Is an investment in the person in order to increase the capacity, empower the populations. I know this is very delicate because we should not fall or transfer the line into consumer microcredit. So that's why probably the definition of this pilot could set up the path in order to work about specific projects of microcredit, not non-addressed to job creation, but addressed to fundamental needs and social needs like housing with this pilot, but also could be done for, as I mentioned before, for other purposes, for transportation, education. There's several others that we could ring-fence and establish different pilots in those areas, defining very well what we understand by these kind of credits. And that could be really, will have a massive potential because there's an even bigger gap that the gap that I mentioned of the 13.9 billion for business microcredit. There's a much bigger one on the other area, as you know for sure. So we really welcome this pilot with Erste, the initiative, and it would be great to discuss in the future whether we could explore more pilots, not only in housing, but also in these other areas that are so interesting.
Thank you. If I may quickly react then.
Please.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Jorge, for this question. So I'm treading very carefully. So what I said is that microfinance, we are having exactly this kind of policy discussions inside the Commission. So as I said, we're reserving, so far, the microfinance term for income generating activities that's consistent with the policy line of our colleagues and to the, let's say, institutional legacy. We are, however, entering this new territory. So far, we are using the word micro-housing loans, but language is less relevant than what we actually are able to achieve on the ground and plug into the next generation of financing programs, and we're going to be able to do that. So indeed, the Commission has pledged also its intent to continue piloting and supporting social policy experimentation at EU and national level. This is also a very important provision of this new Roma inclusion framework that was launched at the EU level. So indeed, after the HERO project, we are also already having one more in the pipeline developing. I can have a teaser here and mention the name. It's called BIG, which stands for Basic Income Guarantee, which is again venturing into yet another area of social assistance and social services and welfare provision, essentially. It's a pilot that is going to support the reorientation and reform of welfare and social assistance, and it's going to have this very active component also of empowerment and support in life and aspiration, personal development capacities, and we'll have some microfinance components together with coaching and mentoring and all of this. So we're again there, let's say, molding and expanding the frame. And indeed, there is a scope to think about further projects to add as different building blocks to create the real shift and build up to something that will be really moving the needle forward. So happy to continue this discussion also offline.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Efremova. Now we are closing the loop, and I will give the floor to Mr. Maricel Duminica, who is a fund manager of Roma Economic Development Initiative, and we'll see how can we close the loop, as I mentioned, in order to create an innovative financial institution which will support startup and for Roma businesses and financial inclusion for Roma entrepreneurs as well. Please, Maricel, I think we can be very efficient to present the highlights of your speech in very few minutes.
Thanks a lot, Bogdan. So I'm starting my presentation. Okay, so thanks a lot for the introduction. I'll be talking in the next 10 minutes about what we are trying to do here at REDI and how we are trying to support the Roma entrepreneurs. So let's kick off with some quick stats. So employment among the Roma is quite unemployment among the Roma is very high, and it's much higher than in the mainstream population. We see that it ranges somewhere between 60 and 70%. And this is due to various reasons. So it's lack of education, it's lack of skills, and it's also discrimination. And among the 30 to 40% of the Roma that are employed, what we are noticing is that there is persistency of entrepreneurship. So a large number of the people are actually self-employed. So they have a small business and they try to sort of provide their daily living with that. Now, our thesis, what we think here at REDI is that if we support the existing entrepreneurs, then the employment among the Roma community will increase, and this will ultimately lead to community development. But there are some challenges for Roma businesses, and one of the most prevalent challenges for the Roma businesses is financial exclusion. So financial exclusion exists for several reasons. For instance, small-scale financial services are quite costly. And there is a supply side issue, as Jorge has explained to us a little bit earlier. Furthermore, there is information asymmetry. So quite a lot of Roma businesses are activating in the informal economy. And then MFIs are a bit, they find it difficult to assess the informal income, and they simply prefer not to provide loans to businesses that activate in the informal economy. Furthermore, there is also self-exclusion, which means that the Roma entrepreneurs are afraid of discrimination. They are afraid of being rejected, so then they simply don't apply for a loan. Now, REDI tried back in 2015, 2016 to enhance access to finance for Roma entrepreneurs. And they started a pilot project which took place in Romania and Bulgaria in cooperation with CUPEST, with the aim of facilitating access to finance for the entrepreneurs. And the way it worked is that CUPEST was providing loans to MFIs in Romania and Bulgaria, who would then have to provide loans to entrepreneurs that were identified by REDI NGO. Now, what was the outcome of the project? So there were about 850 entrepreneurs mapped. Around 90 were presented to MFIs. 30 entrepreneurs have applied for a loan, and just 6 of them received a loan. So we can see that the funnel rate is not looking that great, right? So we started discussing with the MFIs, and we tried to understand what's happening and what are the reasons why the Roma are not accessing loans. And there are three main reasons that the MFIs have underlined to us. First of all, it's bad credit history. So some of them have received loans in the past, and they did not pay back on time. Second of all, it's lack of collaterals. Roma are not able to put collaterals when they request a loan. And third, most of them are activating in the informal sector. So at REDI, we took the feedback and we said, okay, we need to come up with a new plan in order to help Roma entrepreneurs access loans. And it's developed on three main pillars. So our project says that we need to support the entrepreneurs in the transition from informal to formal, because this was one of the main hurdles in our previous project. And for this purpose, we are in direct contact with the Agency for Employment in all the countries where we are working. And we are trying to develop programs in order to facilitate the transition from informal to the formal sector. Secondly, we provide business development services to the Roma businesses. So we help them digitalize and we help them be more competitive in the market. And thirdly, it's enhancing the access to finance. And for this last bullet point, that's where REDI Economic Development SI is coming into place. So who is REDI Economic Development? So this is the investment vehicle of REDI NGO. It's established in Luxembourg. We have an investment capacity of 5 million euro, and we are able to provide loans and risk sharing to financial intermediaries. Now we are working in 4 countries. These are Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, and North Macedonia. And these are the countries where REDI NGO is currently activating. And I'll explain you a bit later why it's important that we work only in the countries where REDI NGO is present. Looking a bit at the market, we noticed that the market is quite sizable. So we have analyzed the market in the 4 countries, and our estimates say that the total market size should be at around 110 million euro. So this new market has quite a high potential for those MFIs that are willing to come in and work with us. Now, why do we think we will succeed? So I was telling you a bit earlier that this project is built on the experience we had in 2015, 2016. And I was also mentioning that the NGO is very important in this project. So we are not just providing loans and risk sharing, but we also come with a series of services that are provided by REDI NGO. For instance, some of the most important are that we'll be providing an intern to the MFI. So they'll get more accustomed with the culture of the Roma. And this intern will also be connected with the community. We'll map the Roma entrepreneurs, and we'll also prepare the loan applications from the MFIs. And this will help the MFIs to reduce their fixed costs in order, so they will be able to reduce their fixed cost, and we think this is also quite important. And we'll also monitor the loan repayment. So we'll be in direct touch with the Roma entrepreneurs. We will be telling them when they need to repay and why it's important for them to pay on time. So there will be some financial education that we'll be providing to them. So what are the next steps for us? We'll be closing REDI Luxembourg at 5 million euro in March 2021. We'll start disbursing funds to financial intermediaries, and then we'll be measuring impact. And what we want to do is to come back to potential investors, show them that there is a strong impact in the community, and we also want to show that the Roma are not riskier than the mainstream population in order to gather more funds and scale up the project. All right, that's about it for me. If there are any questions.
Please. Maricel, what do you think? What do you think that will booked as a most important social impact in communities, in Roma communities? What do you expect? I'm taking off now the head of moderator, and now I'm coming on on your side. Okay.
Well, we expect to see job creation. We expect to see job creation, and with job creation, we expect to see community development. So access to finance should be enabling people of making them afford housing, making them afford access to electricity, to water, and so forth. So we think that if we manage to support entrepreneurship among the existing entrepreneurs, then business creation will flourish among the community, and this will ultimately lead to community development.
So now, as you mentioned, job creation. Now we can hope that they can save money. If they can save money, we can close the loop with Mr. Surek and Erste Bank project. So even with other projects coming from EU, looks how the things are closing and clutching and creating this mechanism. What do you think about financial inclusion? I think one other impact it will be that we'll take out some informal businesses to formal businesses. What do you think? Is it going to succeed, or are we going to support MFIs in order to create a new market at the end of the day?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is one of the main pillars of our project, and it's one of the main areas where the NGO is working. We already had a couple of similar projects that have been held in North Macedonia, where our operational director was in touch with the Agency for Employment. And what we try to do there is to facilitate, to find easier ways for Roma businesses to make the transition from informal to formal, and then they would ultimately be able to access loans.
Okay, thank you very much, Maricel. I think we're approaching to the end, and if there are not any other questions, I would like to draw a single conclusion now. I am taking with me the idea that an innovative project, as we had in the first presentation, then the focus of association at the European level, the European Commission focus on different elaborating policies for vulnerable people, and for sure this will be addressed to Roma people as well, and initiatives like REDI ONG or NGO had to create a fund and that fund it's supporting activities of MFIs and banks to create a market within Roma communities. This is the conclusion I'll draw, and I would like to thank you, all of you, for the nice presentation, for the speeches, for contribution, and I like to thank, of course, to the people who are in behind and organize this event. Thank you very much, and all my best, and for the new holidays which are approaching.
Thank you
very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.